Well, I told you I'd be back with more Simpsons reviews, and after a couple weeks, roughly a month and a half, here I am. I wanted to take a different approach for the next series of Simpsons and Me videos. I did some random episodes, I did some Halloween episodes, and then I closed it off with a 2-in-1 and a look not only at an episode, but the circumstances surrounding said episode's conception. So for this next wave of Simpsons and Me videos, I'm going to be looking at some character spotlight episodes. Episodes of The Simpsons where the Simpson family may be a part of it, but the episode itself is about a secondary character and focuses on developing them or their relationship with the Simpsons. With that being said, let's talk about Homer Loves Flanders. The 5th season of The Simpsons is the one often considered by many to be the best season in the entire series besides season 7. It's a season that, while I think it is top tier, is slightly overrated and has its share of flaws. That's not to say that the season is bad. It has some episodes that can be considered all-time classics, including several episodes that very well could be a rare 10 out of 10. But maybe, just maybe, I'm a bit sour on season 5 because these episodes played in syndication so much when I was growing up, and the DVD came out when I was in middle school and was watched repeatedly by myself and my friend Andrew. So my perception of season 5 is permanently biased due to overexposure. Like, when I rewatch the show, I find myself skipping episodes in season 5 by virtue of just not being in the mood because I've seen them a million times. With that being said, I don't hate season 5, I'm just a little burned out on it, and as a result, don't consider it to be the best season of all time. My personal favorite season is 4. However, when there's a season 5 episode I want to watch, I will drop everything and watch it, which brings us to one of my all-time favorite episodes of the series, Homer Loves Flanders. There's just something so special about Homer Loves Flanders that I just can't quite put my finger on. Well, I can, but you'll find out later in the video. It was long established that Homer did not like Flanders despite being his neighbor for years, out of either jealousy of Flanders' success.
You've been rubbing my nose in it since I got here. Your family is better than my family. Your beer comes from farther away than my beer. You and your son like each other. Your wife's butt is higher than my wife's butt. You make me sick.
Or just a simple dislike for Flanders as a person.
You saved me. Why?
Heck, you'd have done the same for me. Help! Help!
So the idea of an episode where they become friends was a no-brainer, but this episode takes it to the next level by making Flanders actually get irritated by and become resentful of Homer. And it's pretty funny to actually see Flanders, someone who is bound by his religious views and rarely expresses anything resembling irritation, anger, or resentment, finally just have enough and let his anger run wild. This is an episode that on paper is one of the greatest concepts they could have come up with, and in execution it not only lived up to that but surpassed it. It's great. Everything about this episode works. Homer and Ned bonding initially over their shared love of football when Ned wins tickets to a football game is the logical starting point, but from there it's just a wacky adventure that takes all sorts of twists and turns with the whole newfound friendship between Homer and Ned. Homer Loves Flanders is a singular plot episode, giving full focus to the storyline between Homer and Ned, and it's funny how at first they get along fine, but then Homer starts to overstay his welcome. The dinner scene is one quoted by myself and my friends fairly often, especially in high school whenever I would show up at a friend's place while they were having family dinner. The animation when he eats that drumstick is a sight to behold.
Ooh, dinner. May I join you?
This episode manages to stay at a certain level with the humor while not stalling the plot at all. The family picnic scene is very relatable. I think everyone has had a moment like this when they were kids, where your parent has befriended someone and they think, oh, well, I get along with this person and they have kids, so my kids and their kids will get along fine. Yeah, that's not always the case, especially when you consider Bart and Lisa's position where they already don't like the Flanders kids. They make it work, or rather Bart makes it work, and for some reason Lisa gets like nothing for this scene besides being in the food fight. She just gets kind of left out completely, but yeah, to all new parents, just a reminder, kids will tolerate your friends' kids most of the time because they understand that they're your friends' kids, but sometimes they're just literally being nice and you've put them in an awkward situation. Homer Loves Flanders feels tonally similar, albeit less dark, to Homer's Enemy. It features Homer interacting with someone who can't deal with his shit. The whole thing is, for years, Flanders was trying to be nice and neighborly towards Homer and develop a friendship, and then when Homer finally responds in kind, Flanders realizes he just can't deal with him. This era of Ned is a weird era because they weren't quite dead set on making him a religious nut yet. Like, he had his moments, but he was still well adjusted and had character traits beyond being religious. Homer Loves Flanders has perfect pacing. It consistently elevates at a good pace. First, Ned and Homer, they're good friends, whatever, and then Ned starts to get more and more irritated with Homer, and then he starts really getting frustrated and tries to avoid Homer. This all culminates with one of the most ridiculous scenes in season 5, which is just a straight up Terminator 2 parody, and a delicious one at that. I love this scene because I knew Terminator 2 when I was a kid, so like this clicked with me. Some of the references the Simpsons did back then didn't really hit me until I was older, but no, this is great. And then he gets pulled over and given a sobriety test where Chief Wiggum determines that he is
high as a kite, everybody! Goofballs!
Everything up until this point has kind of reminded me of a precursor to Hurricane Nettie, where Flanders is just pushed and pushed and pushed, and he continues to try and turn the other cheek and be a nice guy, and he has this fucking really kind of disturbing dream where he does a sniper thing, and the whole episode up to this point kind of feels like an unintentional call forward to Hurricane Nettie, which also goes into his repressed anger. The fact that while Flanders tries to be a good Christian and he tries to be patient with people, he does have a breaking point.
There's Homer. There's Homer too. That's also Homer. That's Homer.
Finally, at the end, Ned blows up, again establishing a trait that would be revisited in Hurricane Nettie when he's just had enough of Homer. And then everyone at the church goes at him, and Homer is the only one to stand up for him. This scene is a perfect showcase of Homer's redeeming qualities, that he may be an obnoxious fuck who doesn't care about anybody but himself most times, but he is there for his friends. And it all ends with Ned expressing that Homer is really a true friend, but the status quo is kept intact in the end when Homer goes back to telling Flanders off.
Get lost, Flanders.
Oakley dokley.
Or is that status quo kept intact? Homer Loves Flanders is a rare example of lasting development in The Simpsons. It can be looked at as a companion piece to When Flanders Failed, in that it helps build the relationship between Homer and Flanders. It's one of the few pieces of Simpsons lore that actually gets built up through multiple episodes across multiple seasons. Homer and Flanders' relationship started out as a simple keeping up with the Joneses dynamic. Homer was jealous that Ned was more successful than him, as seen as Simpsons roasting in Call of the Simpsons. This is elevated to a petty jealousy thing in Dead Pudding Society, and it's almost like they were going to develop a rivalry between the two, but when Flanders failed, and later Homer Loves Flanders really helped them take the steps necessary to transform it from a neighbors who don't like each other dynamic to Homer and Ned being close friends, maybe even best friends. Yeah, this comes up every so often in the fan base with discussions like who is Homer's best friend. Moe, Barney, and Apu each have claim, but I think Flanders is on that short list too due to the multiple interactions and the fact that Ned is in that inner circle of non-Simpsons family members who can be considered a main character by virtue of the sheer amount of spotlight he's received. That being said, it's very hard to decide on what is a perfect Simpsons episode. You've seen my previous videos. I think the highest rating I've ever dropped was a 7.5, but I am fully comfortable with giving Homer Loves Flanders a 10 out of 10 perfect score. First episode in The Simpsons and me to achieve this perfect score. It just does everything right. The story, the development of the relationship between Ned and Homer, it's just a prime example of an episode that is both perfect in concept and in execution. It has some of the funniest moments in the entire series, and it manages to do a grounded, down-to-earth story while still delving into more cartoonish humor. It's funny, it has a compelling story, great character moments. There's no universe where I can say this is anything lower than a 10 out of 10. This episode is just built different. There's really no other way I can put it. It manages to be funny while maintaining a good pace and a great story. Going into the process of producing this video, I knew pretty much right away that Homer Loves Flanders was walking away with a perfect 10 out of 10 score. Rewatching it only served to confirm this. In retrospect, I was kind of short-sighted while writing this because this is the second part in the development of Homer and Flanders' friendship. I should have done When Flanders Failed first, but this episode is just so perfect I had to do it first. I'll do When Flanders Failed at a later date. So this was the first in a few Simpsons and Me videos that I am producing covering character spotlight episodes, and we're off to a solid start. So next time we're going to take a look at an episode that I find is greatly underappreciated and is one that I absolutely adore. So like, subscribe, and
Stop it! Breathe through your damn mouth!